It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
All right, so get out your notebooks, boys and girls. Let's start the show, shall we? Are we ready for the show to start? All right. So, welcome to Crush 2020. It's your best year ever. It's presented by Brand Crafted Social Club, which many of you are members of. Thank you so much. If you're on Facebook and not in the Brand Crafted Social Club, this is what we do for a living. We connect, we meet and greet, and we learn from one another. So if you're not in the group already, please join. It's totally free, and we're super cool. So, we celebrate small businesses and we connect people socially. And when it comes to small business, the interesting thing about it is the thing that you're missing is accountability and support. When you work in a big company, right, they give you targets, they give you objectives, they give you goals, they tell you what's right, they tell you what's wrong. You start a thing like I did and like many of you did, and it's like, I don't know if that was good, I guess, right? So the Brand Crafted Club and some of the other ways that we support one another is the way that we do that. And it's pretty important to set goals. And that's why we're here tonight. Because if you don't have goals, something terrible happens. You work really hard and you perform X, whatever X is. But you don't know if it was a good job or not. And you think, oh, I just got to keep on doing more. And I got to keep on doing more. And I got to keep on doing more. And whether or not you're doing well or not, you kind of start getting bummed out and thinking, well, I guess it was good. I could always do better. Well, no, set a goal. That's why goals are there. So annual planning is really, really, really critical. So you can set objectives and know what you're going to try and get done in the next 12 months. So the other thing that annual planning does is it lets you stop and look around every once in a while, like our good friend Ferris Bueller once said, right? You can stop and realize, wow, we've really come a long way and I'm really proud of what I built and this is really great. So that's why annual planning is so important. So my wife Abby and I do annual planning every year. We've done it for the last 8 years. And we were going to do originally an all-day seminar, and we were all going to plan together. And then I started thinking about all the wonderful people in the Brand Crafted group and how different all of our businesses are. And I thought, that's not going to work. We all have our own thing, so we really can't lead a seminar like that right now. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to get some people together who I really respect. And the lineup tonight is so brilliant. I'm so honored that they're here tonight. We're going to talk about budgeting. We're going to talk about goals. We're going to talk about packaging. We're going to talk about marketing. And I just could not be more excited. So with that, we've got some folks tonight, they're going to get interviewed. Some folks are going to do TED Talk style. So I may be stepping on and off the stage. So nothing's wrong, right? So we'll be doing that. But let's start at the beginning. The most important thing for all of us is to know, well, are we going to get paid? Is there money out there to be spent with us in our small businesses? So let's welcome to the stage the guy that I know that does one of the best jobs I've ever heard of explaining the economy and what it means to you. Dave Spano, the president and CEO of Annex Wealth Management. Come on down to the stage, please. There you go, Pop.
Hello, everybody.
How's that?
Perfect.
Excellent. So, who's heard Dave Spano on the radio? He does radio shows all over the place, right? The guy, he's everywhere. And
they don't know that you did radio for a long time too, do they?
You know that I did radio.
That's how we know each other, right?
Yeah, back at WTMJ.
You was the boss at WTMJ.
I thought I was the boss, right, at least. But we're starting here at the beginning because if the economy's healthy, we'll all do well. And you do a great job of explaining how the economy is doing. So we'll just start very simply there. I don't know very much, so please be gentle. How is it doing? Are we good?
Yeah, the economy's doing great. We do 5 radio shows now throughout the state of Wisconsin and in Florida. And that's what we do. We explain these things. And my mother is now 90, by the way. I've driven by this Firehouse my entire life. We grew up on 55th Street, and so I drive by the Firehouse all the time. So first time I'm in it, but the reason why I bring up my mother is she says she listens. So at 90 years old, I have to take these very complex topics, economics and how that all works together. And when I go home and I see her, she calls me, or I see her at church on Sunday, she tells me that I didn't do a very good job of explaining. That's an Italian mother for you. So I'll try to answer these questions in those terms. So The economy is doing great, and there's a lot of measurements that you can look at. And, the obvious measurement is this thing called, GDP. What is that? It is a measurement if the economy is growing, gross domestic product. If it is positive, that means we're moving forward. If you have two back-to-back negative quarters, that's a recession. We want to avoid recessions. And so right now, we look at all of these numbers, and we're not seeing it. We're not seeing a recession right now. It's slow, but it's muddling along. You think about how far we've come. In 2008, I won't forget it, September 15th, 2008, the stock market was falling apart. Banks were, cascading. They were failing one after another. It was a tough time. There's this, money markets are always supposed to be at a flat number, $1. They were less than $1. And so it was a tough time. I know that we went on the show that day and we talked about, what should people do? We were really concerned. That moves forward to March of 2009 when we bottomed out. The Dow Jones was at 6,500.
Wow.
In March of 2000, 28,000. In the last 10 and a half years. So we have had an extended bull market. It is the longest in history. The difference, of course, is that it hasn't been that robust. We had a lot of years, we had small amounts of GDP, 1%, 1.5%, 2%, and that's where we are now. So it wasn't a V recovery like we've seen before. It's a very slow sloped recovery, and that's one of the reasons why it has extended for this term.
So you don't see a recession coming, and no one can see the future, but what are we looking at Q1 and Q2? Do you have any guidance you can give us?
Yeah, Q1, obviously we're going to end, if the books were closed today, we're up about 24% for the year. That's a blowout year. But a year ago, things were different. We went into the fourth quarter. I remember it was Christmas Eve, and myself and Danny Clayton, who was right there, the famous Danny Clayton.
Danny Clayton, WKTI fame right there. Yeah, you the man, Danny.
And now
my guy.
And now an employee of Annex Wealth Management.
That's right.
We've been doing all of our radio. We were there, and we were talking about it, and it was down 20% at that point. Total change because the Federal Reserve has changed their policy. They were raising rates. Now they're lowering rates. The economy is doing better. The fears of recession have gone away. So right now we see positive but slow, muddle along economy through through the rest of this year and into early 2020. Now, of course, 2020 is a big year. We have a presidential election. We all know about the circus that's happening with in politics right now. So we'll have to see where that goes. But if there is a change in policy, that's the concern, and that's what small business owners have to look forward to. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle that you're on or in between, right? If there's a change, if they've moved your cheese, right, what's going to be the difference? And so is there going to be a change in tax policy? Well, if the Democrats get in, they have a different tax policy than the current administration. Will there be a change in, for example, health care? We all have to apply, either buy health care or give it to our employees. Will there be a change there? Will there be a change in Federal Reserve policy, for example? All of that could determine where we go from here. Again, we have not had a recession in coming up on 11 years. Does that mean we're due? As my favorite Krusty the Clown, when they pulled him aside and they said, "Why would you bet against the Harlem Globetrotters?" And he said, "They were due." Famous line. But are we ready for a recession? We're never ready for it, but we have to be careful because if that happens, and if there is a change in policy and investments go down, that means your buyers may not be there because what happens is business owners, they hunker down.
Yep.
And they go, well, maybe I'm not going to buy what I'm supposed to buy. Maybe I'm not going to invest. Maybe I'm not going to hire. And then that's how recession comes along.
So when we look into big news events in 2020 that may make policy change, obviously a turnover in the election or the governing body would be a deal. If the Democrats win and the Republicans are out, just because they have a different view of things. Right. You hear all of this talk about, and think about it from a small business perspective. Oh, the China trade deal. Is that a thing? Seriously.
Oh, it's a thing. Yeah.
Isn't that the most professional question you've ever heard? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah. So why are we concerned about it? Most importantly, because you can argue that economically it hasn't made that much of a difference in either pricing or behavior. What we saw and we continue to see until very recently is CEO confidence was rolling over, as we like to say in our business. And so it had dropped precipitously, and that is not good, because if CEO confidence is starting to decline, imagine you're the CEO and you have a board of directors, or you're a small business owner, and you have to make a decision and say, if I am not confident anymore, maybe I don't hire, maybe I don't do capital expenditures, and maybe I don't invest back into my community, whatever it is that you're doing, that could cause a problem. So we watch that number very closely. And if CEO confidence begins to decline, does the consumer confidence begin to decline? In our economy, 2/3 of our economy is driven by the consumer. We have to make sure that they're confident and they're spending and that they're happy.
So there are a lot of metrics out there that small business owners can watch, but if you could tell us to watch one, the consumer confidence would be the one to pay attention to?
Well, no, there's not one. There really is. There's probably half a dozen that we look at. The one for sure is to watch confidence, and to watch, the most important number is GDP declining, and are we headed towards a recession? There's this thing called, most people won't know it, but it's called inverted yield curve. You might have heard this term. It's when short-term rates are higher than long-term rates. It's not the way it's supposed to be. And what that usually indicates is that the economy is slowing.
Yeah.
Right? And that means that a recession is coming, and it has predicted recessions, and we had an inverted yield curve for a short term. This time it's different. That's a tough thing to say in the investment business, but what's happening in Europe is there's $17 trillion of negative yields. So you go there and you say, all right, I want to borrow some money. They go, here it is, and here's another schnickel for you. I mean, it's negative. And so what's happening if you're a German investor is you're coming to the United States and buying our treasuries, and that's driving rates down, and that's really what's happening.
So we only have time for a couple more quick questions. Where should we get financial information from? Obviously your radio show, which we want to hear about, but what sources should we be reading on the web or maybe in the mass media that gives us good stuff? Because remember, we got notebooks out. We want to learn something in addition to your show. Yeah. Where else can we look?
If you made me just choose one source, it would be the Wall Street Journal. You can go to WSJ.com. It is there's so many well-written articles. The opinions are their opinions. That's a little bit different. But if you want to learn about the economy and the direction and what's happening, I would say the Wall Street Journal is really a good spot to go to. And obviously, if you get the feeds, they're in a lot of those feeds as well. Right. Go to those articles and pick up on some of them. If that's one source. The second source, of course, would be annexwealth.com.
That's right. So you do a great newsletter. Tell us about Axiom and what that is.
Yeah. So every week, Danny and his team. We have 5 shows. He tries to find. It's hard to find 3 good pieces out of what I do over 5 shows. That's a joke, right? So face for radio. That's the old line, right? So he comes and he finds 3 pieces out of that, and then he emails those out on Sunday. It's our newsletter called Axiom. Some of it's a video. And so you can go just sign up for that. We'll send it out to you. It's worthwhile. It's what we just did right here, but we condense it into about 3-minute spots.
So where and when do your radio shows air in Milwaukee?
WTMJ Saturday morning at 10, WISN Saturday morning at 11, WIBA we're starting in a week. We're in Naples, Florida, and in Appleton as well. So we have 5 shows that we do.
So annexwealth.com, the Axiom, the radio show, Wall Street Journal, GDP, CEO consumer confidence.
Everybody get all of that?
Right? You guys writing that down? This is some good stuff. Dave Spano from Annex Wealth Management, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. Have a good night. Now, the other reason why I'm really grateful Dave came, because he's supposed to be at a kid's sporting event right now and decided to come talk with you guys as well. So thanks again for sacrificing. We appreciate it, sharing the knowledge with us tonight. All right, we're moving right along to one of the most important things that we're going to do in the next couple of weeks. We're going to set our goals. So let's welcome to the stage one of the smartest guys I know, Mark Schanen, Managing Director of Supporting Strategies. Mark.
That's really strong praise.
That is strong praise.
Can you hear me? There.
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can hear you.
Good.
So, okay, we're all here because in the next couple of weeks we're going to do business planning, and a lot of our planning involves setting and monitoring our goals. It's one of the most important things we're going to do.
Sure.
Before we talk about how to do it, as a person that helps people set goals, how do you think about goals? Like when you say, oh, we got to set our goals, what do you think about there?
I mean, your goal really should just be a map, right? So if you're lost in the woods and you're hiking, right?
Yes.
There's a map, right? In theory.
Yeah.
Hopefully, if you made a map, right? If you don't
Yeah.
have a map, then God only knows where you're going.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I mean, the way your budget should work is it should be a plan, like an idea of, okay, where am I headed to? And is it the right resolution is probably the right way to think about it, right? Is it low enough level of detail that I can see where I'm going, or is it too much detail where I've got every single leaf in the woods? Like, oh my God, like that's way too much for me. I need to be able to tell when I'm going the wrong way and when I'm not going the wrong way, and you make course adjustments as needed, right?
So it's a map that can guide us as we go.
Yep.
So let's think about what is a good goal. Because let's say somebody made $100,000 last year, okay? Sure. Is it a good goal to say, you know what, I bet I could do 125? Or are you selling yourself short if you're not saying, I'm going to do 250? You know, like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like, which goal is more useful?
They're both good. It really depends on your business.
That doesn't help.
It depends on your business, right?
You were supposed to give us an answer.
I'm giving you an answer.
Okay, fine.
Shut up and listen.
Explain.
Here's the thing, right? If you started your business, ready to retort?
I'm
All
good.
Right, good. So if you think about your business, right? If you started your year midway through the year, you made $100,000. Sure, maybe 250 is the right number, right? Maybe you have a recurring revenue stream. Maybe you don't. That's what you've got to think about. Everybody's business is going to be a little different. You got to think in terms of real granular sort of levels of, okay, how many clients do I need to win this month? How many customers do I need to sell to, right? Stop, take a step back and say, what's realistic? And if I have an awesome year, my best year ever, you know, what did my best month ever look like? If you string together 12 of those, great. But that's really unlikely. You need to be a little practical about it. You usually have a pretty good idea for what your cost structure looks like, right? Like, I know how much I got to pay my employees. I know how much I'm going to pay for my building, for my rent, whatever. But when it comes to the revenue side, usually it's a little bit more of a black box, and you got to be intelligent about what you're thinking about and stop and say, okay, like in my business or in your business, right? If I win, 2 customers a month every single month for the rest of the year, that's 24 customers. What's the average revenue going to be, right? You kind of do some math on that and you say, okay, it's going to take a while to get to that point, and I'm not going to get all that revenue in January, right? It's going to take time to ramp up a customer, and that's just how the business works. And now it's different than I'm selling a lot of, something that I can just churn out, right? Like if I'm selling nutcrackers because it's Christmas time, right?
Love it.
I'm going to do a lot of business in November and December, and I'm not going to do squat when it comes to February, right? So you've got to stop and think about, okay, well, what's realistic in terms of your business? And everybody's business is going to be different.
So if we were sitting down and planning for my business,
Yep.
if I'm hearing you right, it
Yep.
would be, okay, here's how you got to that number,
Yep.
but here's what made it up. Like the last 6 months you did this, or you're strongly seasonal where you're dependent on a certain season of the year.
Yeah,
Is that kind of how you'd put it together?
Right, like so for Abby, she's probably got a lot of senior photos that she does. She
Yeah.
probably has a fair amount that she does at certain times of the year, and then other times of the year it's going to be slower and quieter, and that's just what you're going to expect, right? And you have a maximum amount of capacity, especially if you're the sole person in your business that
Yeah.
you can do, right? So a lot of people, when they start thinking about their business, how do I scale that, right? How do I get that to a point where I can bring on another employee, they can do what I need them to do, and then I'm still going to make margin or whatever you want to call it, like profit on that over time.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to come back to the question
Yep.
that you shut me down on because I do
Sorry.
want an answer. It's okay.
Go ahead.
I'm going to come back. You hear people talk about the BHAG, the big hairy goal, right?
Yep.
Like the
Yep.
idea
Yep.
of I'm going to put out a big number out there.
Yeah.
Is that mentally powerful or is it distracting to do that? Because I see how you put the recipe together to get there, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But what is the power of that big goal in the distance?
Depends on the person, right?
Okay.
I mean,
You didn't answer my
seriously,
question
like
again.
if you tell a sales guy,
Right.
hey, if you do this, like you're going to get paid $250,000 or $400,000 this year,
Right.
And they say, holy crap, I'm never going to make that number,
Right.
What did you just do? You just totally demoralized your entire team. Like, why would you ever do that? You might do the same to yourself.
Sure.
And then you feel like a failure, even though you're up 20% for the year.
Right.
That's a great year.
Yeah.
You shouldn't feel bad about that. But
I'd like that.
I didn't double my revenue because I set a $200,000 goal, right? So you've got to stop and think about, okay, well, what's realistic? What should I really be thinking about? And yeah, you should have a stretch goal, but as you're going through the course of the year, you course adjust, right? Hey, I left the woods. Took me less time to do the hike than I thought. So now I'm going to say, okay, where's the next map for the next trail I'm going to hike? Because I have an hour to spend, right?
Yeah, so let's
that's
be
the way to think
tactical.
about it.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
to interrupt.
Yeah.
Let's be tactical for a
That's my big
second.
analogy,
So, like,
sorry.
are we checking every month? Is that what you recommend as the year goes? We're going month by month?
I mean, ideally, you're doing every month. At a minimum, you should be doing every quarter, right?
Okay.
At a bare minimum, you should be looking at how am I doing on a quarterly basis? Did it kind of shape up the way I expected? Yeah, again, it's, okay, I'm going to hike for 5 miles. Am I going the right way or am I not? I got to look at my map and see. You won't know if you're not looking at it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to stop, take directions as to where you're at on the waypoints and make sure you're going the right way.
So something that happens to all of us, we get way behind
Yep.
and think, I'm never going to make it, or we get way ahead.
Yep.
When do you know it's time to change the plan? What would you recommend?
It becomes more art than science and judgment, right? It's like,
Right.
and this is where like people say, well, finance, that's really boring. Like, why would you ever do finance? Why would you ever do accounting? It's like,
Right.
there's a lot more to it. Sorry, this is me glorifying it because I'm a finance geek. But
No, really, it's cool.
no, it is. Come on.
Come on.
But if I'm being totally candid, I mean, part of what you should be doing is as you go through the course of the year, you should say, is that even attainable at this point, right?
Right.
Or am I so far ahead? I really should be thinking about, okay, well, how do I take the next step? I'm ahead of where I thought I'd be. I really should be a lot more aggressive. I should be making investments. I should be hiring that next person. I should be, thinking about how I expand what I'm doing, right? And if you don't do that, you lose opportunity cost. But if you're also suddenly going into a downturn or an economic situation, like, you want to be prepared for that too. And if you don't take advantage of the stuff that's ahead of you right now, maybe when the next downturn comes, you're not in a good position to deal with it. So, I mean, it's all sort of a little bit of a balancing act, and you should be looking at your financials on a regular basis so that you kind of know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having that outside voice is important, though,
Yeah,
right? Someone
I would
that
agree.
doesn't sell shoes.
In a
that
completely
needs to have-
self-serving way, yes,
No,
I would
but it's
agree.
for real when it comes to setting
Yeah.
those monthly goals. Having
Yeah.
someone like you, I mean, you've got a CFO background. That's
Yeah.
pretty important.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in corporate America doing CFO level stuff for JP Morgan and Bank One and GE back in the day. And I think, one of the big things that's really important is as you're going through and you're thinking about your business is how do I compare to my competitors, right? Am I good in my space? Am I not good in my space? Where do I play? What's my value? Is it that I'm the cheapest? Because you don't ever want to be the cheapest, right?
Yeah.
If you're the cheapest, figure something else out first. Because you're just going to get crushed on
Yeah,
price every
totally.
time, right? So the question then becomes, okay, well, who tells me what I'm good at and what I'm not good at? And I'm going to have a different view about my baby than anybody else's, right? Like, my kids are the cutest, smartest, most intelligent people in the world, right? That's just how it is,
Right.
right? Your business is the same way in a lot of ways, especially if you're the business owner. So having a third party come in and not necessarily be the consultant necessarily, but just to tell you, okay, here's how you compare to other people in that field. Here's how you compare to similar sized businesses is important, I feel like, right? And you can do that through Dun & Bradstreet yourself if you really want to, or you can rely on somebody else who has, a lot of exposure to a lot of different companies to have that conversation with you.
Well, tonight's all about tools and
Yeah.
action steps. Is there anything that small business owners should be considering or reading or learning about as they go into their planning for 2020?
I mean, the big thing, right, is going to be understanding your economics. The other thing I would really recommend is make sure if you've got employees, you have a good compensation planning model and you're thinking about that as you add people and you think about who you're adding to your staff, right? The biggest problem that you could run into would be, oh my God, I'm not making enough money to pay this person. Do I let go of them or do I not, right? Like, that is an awful decision to make. Right, you don't want to ever be in that position.
Yeah.
I mean, facilities, whatever, right? Like, I can sublet, I can let somebody else take on the lease, I can whatever, right? But when it comes to people, when it comes to that sort of stuff, you really want to be planning on that in a thoughtful way. I'd also really suggest that you talk to a CPA about your tax planning and what you're doing, especially when it comes to a lot of the new rules that have come out in the past year and a half. People know a lot more about what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing when it comes to, deferring certain things or whatever, right? Talk to an expert, make sure you've got a good plan going into the year. And again, this is why you revisit it periodically, right?
Absolutely.
Quarterly, I should be setting aside a certain amount of money if I'm making money to pay to Uncle Sam and to the state, right? So those are all things that I would also kind of suggest, right?
So one of the things I'm going to take away, and I don't know what you guys are going to take away, but one of the light bulbs I'm having is thinking of your goals not only January through December, but January over January, February over February, because it's thinking, how did I get at my number? What is my current momentum? And how does that compare to previous Januaries? Because for some businesses, that seasonality is strong, and that'll help you guide whether or not you're going to be doing better next year or this year.
And you can get into analysis paralysis, right? Like
Right.
If you're big on the disc profiles, right, the high C person will be all over that, right? I may be a little bit of a C, but I'm also a D, so at some point I say no, don't do that. But I think you do want to make sure that you're looking at relevant comps, right? In the corporate world, we look at quarter over quarter, year over year, and then prior year quarter versus current year quarter, right, and all that kind of crap when you do your SEC reporting. Anytime that you're dealing with it in your own personal business, you should probably be thinking along the same terms, and if it's relevant, go take a look at it. Really what you want to be doing is looking at, okay, how much is it up or down, and then if it's worth spending the time on, then you spend the time on it. But you have to have an accounting system or a process in place to do that, right? So if you've got something automated to the point where you can do that, that saves you a ton of time when you get to the sort of nuts and bolts of the analysis side of stuff, and then it's okay, should I spend my time on this or not? Probably not, but maybe I should, right, if I'm down a lot or I'm up a lot, right?
So I've worked with Mark behind the scenes, and he's one of those guys you want to have on speed dial. Hey, am I looking at this the right way? So he's someone you might want to consider having on your team because he's really smart and he doesn't like to answer questions, as you heard tonight, so that's great. But definitely a help as we try and set our goals for 2020. Mark Schanen, Supporting Strategies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh, now you're going to leave me hanging? Oh.
Thank you.
All right. Moving right along. Our customer loyalty architect, Tamara Burkett. Please come on down, Tamara. You guys know Tamara? Yeah. Tamara is awesome. And I am on purpose not properly introducing Tamara because you have another new title. Can you share that new title with everyone?
Well, Pat, I have a couple of titles, new titles.
Lay it on us.
So, as of last week, Wednesday, I am officially #1 best-selling business author.
Wow.
And international best-selling author. So
very cool. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
All right, you got to give us 10 seconds. Tell us about the book. Come on.
Oh, so the book is titled Brilliant Breakthroughs for the Small Business Owner. And it's a compilation book. There are 8 authors, and we all have our specialty. And we talk about bookkeeping, we talk about website development, and how that should be your salesperson. We have an author who talks about company culture. We have another author who talks about the digital age and what that all means. I talk about CRM. So there's just a plethora of different subjects in there, and it's all designed to be more like a handbook for a small business owner. Yeah. So it's something that you open up, you get the information you need to implement the strategies and move your business forward. So there's no fluff in our books, and it's the 3rd volume of a series. So.
Well, congratulations on the success, and congratulations on the success. Maggie and Carrie are too. Congratulations. All right, so we heard Dennis talk about CRMs. You are a customer loyalty architect, and you help people get closer to the people in their databases. How critical is it to know that the people in your database are people? How important is this? Oh, my goodness.
So when you talk about building relationships, people really look for the trust and like factor, the rapport. And so the more you engage with people and you connect on the emotional level is when they open up and they begin to trust you. So it's really about looking at the touch points. How does your customer or customers interact with you? And how do you intend for them to behave, and what is that emotion do you want them to walk away with? So it's really about being intentional when you interact with people and being consistent.
So a lot of businesses, not mine, a lot of businesses have their data scattered every place. Facebook page, email lists, paper slips, business cards, and from networking things. Like, What do you do to bring it all together, and how important is it to have it all in one place?
Okay, so most of us do. I'm not afraid to admit that I have.
I'll admit it.
I have contacts that's on LinkedIn that I don't have in my database, and that's okay if you have a system for it. Mm-hmm. I like to qualify my people, my potential customers, before I put them in my database, because it's so important to have a quality list of people, and that's going to help you in the long run. However, if you have slips laying everywhere, you have a list of people that are interested in your services, when I have potential customers talk to me about that, my first concern would be, how consistent are you with your follow-ups? There's so much money that you are leaving on the table just by being unorganized with that. And again, it's about what is your process and what tool do you have in place so that you can be consistent. So how many of you cook or like to cook?
Cook, sure.
Okay, so you all know the importance of having the right tool and the sharp knife, right? Because it does the heavy lifting for you. And that's what your tool should do for you. It should do the heavy lifting for you so you can do what you're good at. You can interact with your clients and really take that time to focus on them and not have to dread doing data entry, because I hate data entry. So I look for a system where I can just usually either take a picture of my information and my system will just suck it in for me, suck it into my database or whatnot, so I can spend my time doing what I know how to do and do well.
So tonight's about actionable information. So a CRM will put everybody in one place. Now, you're the wizard of helping us get closer to our customers.
Yes.
Give us some tips and tricks, things you've done, things you've seen, steal this, write this down. What can we do with our CRM or with our data once we have it that works?
Okay, absolutely. So what I use my CRM for, first I look for a CRM that can pretty much eliminate the data entry for me. So that means as soon as I get a business card, if I believe that person belongs in my database right away, then I'll either take a picture. There's an app on my phone that'll take a picture, and again, that information is sucked right into my database. So that's one thing that I look for. So now all CRMs have that feature, but they do have card scanners and they do have different software that you can do that same thing. So I look for that, and I also look for automation in different systems where they're alerting me. So again, follow-ups is usually the bulk of the issues that we have and being consistent with that. So it's about looking for a system that can remind you and help you set the cadence of when you should follow up. So instead of you entering that in your calendar like, oh yeah, I gotta follow up with Sue, I forgot. Your system should be able to do that for you, so you don't have to worry about that, and your system you don't have to worry about your clients falling through the cracks. So again, it's about identifying that system that can support you. If you currently have a system that you're not using, chances are it's because it's not supporting you the way that you need it to, or a lot of times it's too robust. Like, I get lost when I go into my system. So it's about going in and looking for the features that can help you in those daily activities.
If I heard you correctly, is it fair to say it's not about the stuff you do with the data, it's the fact that you do something with the data? Like, you've got to follow up, you've got to get your hands dirty, just pick a tactic and do whatever that tactic is.
So that's the first step. The first step is that you want to be consistent in your follow-ups, because that's how you're able to generate the data that you need. And so the data is essential. An example of how powerful data can be is Amazon. So, if you go shopping at Amazon, and you buy a book or you buy a pair of socks, automatically a little window will come up and say, people who bought these socks also bought this and bought that and bought this, right?
Yeah.
So that's what data can do for you. So think about the services that you have, and your data can really help you identify those patterns in your customers of what type of services are they purchasing or products. And what are the common threads between that? Are they having the same challenges? Is it during the same season? And things of that nature. So it helps you really anticipate the needs of your clients, as well as you can measure the effectiveness of your marketing campaigns. A lot of people use their data for that, and they also use it to look at the processes that they currently have and what's working. So it's like the 80-20 rule. So 20% of the activities that you do is producing 80% of the actual outcome and things of that nature. So it helps you identify those activities that moves your business forward.
So 2 quick things. If you want a card scanner in your CRM, Dennis and Exacta, they do that. Blatant plug, come on, I had to get that in there. They do that with their CRM. Also, if you don't know what a CRM is or how to get one, that's what Tamara does. She matches you with the CRM that's perfect for your business, and you do a great job.
Thank you.
I had to put that plug in there for you too.
Absolutely.
Right? Okay. So a couple of rapid fire questions. What are some of the metrics? I know that newsletters are a part of it, but give us some of the metrics that we should be watching when we're sending out newsletters, trying to keep our customers engaged. Are there certain numbers we should be paying attention to?
So it all depends on what you want their behavior to be when you send out your information. So a good ratio in terms of how many offers to just resources and different value that you're sending, it should be 4 things of value to 1 offer. So make sure that you're doing that. You want to look at what are you sending them consistently and how are they engaging. So how do you identify that? You have to look at more than just the click open rate, because if you're not getting people to actually convert from your newsletters and things, then that's a vanity metric. So you want to make sure that you segment your audience and that you identify what their needs are. What do they want from you? How do they want to hear from you? So when you start doing that and you segment the information you're providing them and then add a call to action to it, whether it's going to your website, opting in, if you have opt-ins, the number of opt-ins that people actually sign up for will tell you how interested they are in the services and products that you have.
So one of the things you just said kind of blew my mind. So like, if you have one database, you're doing it wrong, right? I should have my database, but I should have tags, to use Melissa Blair's term, tags telling me, oh, these are my mastermind folks, these are my consulting folks, these are my brand crafted folks. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
And I should not blanket them all.
The only time you should blanket people is when you have a blog and you want people to read it. That's when you should blanket people. But other than that, all the other information you send, it should just be for mastermind people.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
how you
that's
personalize.
good. Okay, 2 other very quick things. When I talk to small business owners about marketing through email newsletters, again, it's another email question. They worry so much about, what if people unsubscribe? Should I care about that?
No, actually, it's a good thing that people are subscribing.
Okay, whoa, wait, go. What do you mean?
Okay, so again, it's about having a quality email list about people who are interested in the services you provide. It's not about the number, it's about the quality of people. So you want people to unsubscribe if they're not engaged. And Google can ding you for people who are not interacting with you. So that's something you want to pay attention to. If people aren't opening your emails, they're not interacting with you and clicking on the opt-ins, you want to remove them from your list. And it's up to you, the time frame of when you do that.
Wow. Okay, we're almost out of time.
Okay.
How many times can I email somebody? At what level am I spamming? Like 1 or 2 a week, 1 a month? Because people really fret about this and we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, so you definitely, I would suggest to not email people every day for an extended amount of time. When you first get someone on your list, there's like this onboarding period, right? So you can do that for a few days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. It's kind of pushing it, but it's okay. But beyond that, if you connect with them once a week or every other week, it's not a bad thing. Think about it as dating, right? So what, distance makes the heart grows fonder,
right,
or whatnot?
Yeah, sure.
So if you're emailing them some really juicy information, they're gonna look for that email, right? And so when they don't see you, they're like, where's Pat's email? I remember the last one
Where's
you sent
my
me.
email? It's so good.
Yeah, and then when you pop it, they're like, oh, Pat,
Pat's back.
let me see what he got for me today, right?
Yeah, buy my stuff.
Yeah, so that's the intention that you want. So again, think about the intentions behind what you're doing and what you're emailing, and what emotions do you want people to be left with after you connect with them, whether it's a face-to-face, phone call, or email.
So one of the reasons why I adore Tamara is what she does is she helps you take all those scraps of paper and disjointed databases and put them in one screen so you can hold them. But when you start talking to her, she starts talking about emotions and relationships and how to do that.
Yeah.
And that's why you're awesome. So thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome.
It was a pleasure having you. Tamara Burkett. Yeah. She's awesome. And now she's the international #1 best-selling goddess author of the planet. Did I get that title right? #1 selling author of the planet? It's awesome. Goddess author, business. Got it. Okay, now things are going to get a little bit loud, going to get a little bit fun, because up next... Yeah? Are you ready?
Where's my entrance music?
We could clap. Should we clap? Let's clap. Let's clap for Jennifer. Jennifer Buchholz, owner of Excel and Flourish. Yeah, come on down. Yeah, see? Yeah, look. Yeah, now you're embarrassed. Okay, big red
That's what
button.
we're gonna do?
Yeah, do your thing.
Okay, all that. Cool.
Okay, good. Enjoy.
Woo, go take a break, Pat. Okay. I got this for the next 35, 40 minutes. We're cool. All good.
Better be some jokes.
That was the joke. Dude, I don't do TED Talks like you. I'm trying though. Someday. Okay, so hey. My name's Jennifer Buchholz. My company is Excel and Flourish, and I'm an award-winning networker. All right, so seriously, never in my life did this inexperienced introvert imagine that she'd be on stage accepting the E-Women Network Foundation Femtor Award as the International Business Matchmaker of 2019. Whoa. What I appreciate the most about that, first of all, is I was nominated by Lori Hybe. And there were testimonials from many of my E-Women members and friends in this room. So thank you to you all. But the recognition for that was about a member who has consistently gone out of their way to help others succeed. That's cool about networking, right? And I'm a consummate connector who unselfishly looks out for the business needs of others. And to me, that's the goal of what I try to do when I'm networking, because guess what? Y'all don't want to take my Excel training all the time. I know it's great, but seriously, I know there's a time that you're like, no, come on. So I have to have some other shtick. I mentioned something. I am an introvert. Okay? So as an introvert, wait, are there any other introverts in the room? Okay. So you might be able to identify with this, and those of you who can't, I need you to understand the explanation. An introvert wakes up in the morning with their balloon full, and every interaction throughout the day sucks a little bit of life out of them. And when they get home, their balloon is really empty, and then they need to refill it, and they get a little alone time. My mom actually required an hour alone before we could ask her any questions when she got home from work. She was an introvert too. Right? So those of you who are extroverts, raise your hands so we can identify you too. Thank you for being you, because you're the ones who kind of engage with us. And you guys wake up with your balloon empty in the morning, and every interaction fills it up a little bit. And at the end of the day, you're ready to pop because you're so excited about all the really cool stuff that you've done throughout the day, and you want to tell somebody at home, and usually opposites attract. And you're coming home to an introvert. It's really hard, right? So anyway, I just want to make sure that you're familiar with those two different types of people, because you network differently. I've gone to hundreds of networking events over the last 5 years. That's how long I've been doing this, and as a business owner. And I've grown my business, and I've learned some important lessons that I want to share with you guys today. So I'm going to put them up on the screen. I'm not sure, come back and I'll email them to you if you want to take a picture, but we have 12 things I want to share. So the first, have a goal. When you walk into a room for networking, especially for us introverts, there's actually safety in having a clear intention of what you want to get out with it. The more that you have an expectation of who might be in the room. So here's what I'm looking for when I go out and network. Possible mentors. Maybe some other colleagues who are in the same boat as me. And for me, lastly, finding clients. That is not the first thing that I'm out doing, because it's my business. I'm B2B. I don't find my clients hanging out in the room all the time. So that's just have a goal. And then, especially for introverts, once you've met your goal, you have permission to leave. I mean, you don't have to, but give yourself permission to just say, okay, I'm done. Like, I met my goal for the night. I mean, it kind of goes back to Mark's talk on goals before, too. Like, I don't have to kill myself and be there from the very beginning to the very end. This ties into my next tip. Get there early. Now, again, this might come from the introvert side of things, but I can engage a lot better as people are coming in, and I can say hello, and I like to kind of pretend I'm the hostess sometimes, and right? I greet them as they arrive, and then I sometimes make introductions of people who I think should meet each other, and then I'm out. Right? I don't need to be engaged the whole time. And again, if I get there early, then I have permission to leave early. Don't always take it, but Okay, try new stuff. Networking can actually be fun. I know we'll have a friend coming up on stage later. He has an organization called Cigar Networkers. They do a lot of crazy fun stuff. But I've done networking on the Paddle Tavern, doing crafts, and just doing different things to meet different people, because you engage differently when you're doing different stuff and you're not all business. Because if you're sitting there like making a craft and then chit-chatting or vision boards or things like that, you're just in a different space than like, I'm here for business, right? Okay. So network in, my word is variety, but network in different circles for different reasons. And I think I'll go back up for a second. So my reasons. I am a proud member of the MMAC. Who else is MMAC in the house? Handful of members. Okay, thank you. That is business for me, and I'm part of the Cosby group, which is mastermind for me. Those are business relationships and colleagues, and I do get business from those events. I'm a member of Local First. We're my Local First people. There's a handful of them in the room too. Very good. That's just because it's my heart. Sometimes there's business, but actually supporting local is just something I strongly believe in. Brookfield Chamber. Who's in the house from the Brookfield Chamber? They are not quiet. Okay. So there I've had a chance to kind of showcase my skills and help people. So those are some reasons. E-Women Network is all about building my business and taking me to the next level. I'm generally not finding business in that room. That's not what that's about for me in that moment. I bet members in this room have different experiences than what mine is. That's why I will also say there's no one size fits all for networking. I'm also on committees with the Association for Talent Development. All right. And the Metro Milwaukee SHRM, because those are organizations where I can find my peers. Again, different things for different reasons. So, the other thing is, when you do something, when you're networking in those different circles, it might be a little uncomfortable. Give those organizations at least 2 chances. Do not make a judgment on your experience the one time you go. First of all, you're probably a little uncomfortable. You may not have had a chance to really engage with everybody. I've gone into a lot of room with a lot of men. And the situation that I've experienced is that's not always the most comfortable for me. And then after talking longer, they're like, we're really trying to grow the number of women in the group. Will you be a part of it? Because that's an initiative. Like, okay, I can be the token female, right? And that's okay. Like, it's not a bad thing, but you don't get a sense of that, and they don't trust you with that information until you've shown up a couple times, and all of those groups are about showing up. If you don't show up, it doesn't count. Invite others. How many of you have gotten invited to this event from someone else, right? Okay, so find your people, invite people that you want to hang out with, have a wingman or be a wingman. Right? The wingman. Oh, Sandra? Where's Sandra? Sandra is the quintessential wingman. Right? She is the connector galore. And if you know her, she will make sure you know everybody that you should know that she knows. All right? Be prepared. Okay. This is the networking purse. Boys have pockets. Girls often don't. So, we have the name tag. What side does it go on? Right. The right side. Always. Don't ask why. I'll explain it another time. All right. Your stack of business cards. I encourage you to have the back blank for notes. Okay? Now, I keep my business cards in the car because I never need them at home, right? And if you ever wonder, like, oh man, I don't know what to say, I'm very uncomfortable and awkward, there are these handy little coasters that I've placed throughout the room that have networking questions on the back. And they're puzzles. I know, they're fun things. I know. And again, some more tips for networking. Please feel free. I have plenty with me tonight, so you're welcome to ask for as many as you need. I also always have a pen and a notepad with me. I want to know. So I have, when I do have pockets, the people that I want to connect with after, hey Mark, they go in one pocket. The people that I don't necessarily want to connect with later, they go in a different pocket. Just a tip. There's nobody back there right now. All right, the fortune is in the follow-up. Ooh, wait. This one. Here we go. The fortune is in the follow-up. Be prepared, have a system. CRM was talked about twice already tonight. I don't need to get into that, but here's the deal. Don't automatically add someone to your list. Okay, that's it. That's all I'm going to say on that. Okay. Work the walls. So what I mean by that is the introverts, they're not going to be in that hive of activity. They're going to find a safety zone near the wall. Work the walls. Those people want to talk, they just don't want to be in the buzz. So my common, like if you remember anything from this, just go to the next event you're at, go work the walls and see who's at the perimeter. You can find some pretty good people there. Nope, not there yet. If you can't find your tribe, create it. I have created crazy things like Casual Fridays co-working, Shenanigans. I use Meetup. We've also done speed networking events. We bring people to us when we don't find the things that we want. If you haven't done that yet, do it. It's pretty fun. Evaluate the investment of your time, energy, and money regularly. What is working for you in networking and what's not, and be open to reconsider and let some things go. It doesn't have to be permanent, but for a time. Some of this stuff comes in seasons. A couple more things and we're almost done. Be generous. That's my biggest tip. Maggie, we talked about that in the book you let me be in your chapter, in your book. Be generous. Be generous with your time, with your connections, make introductions. The most generous thing you can do is say, Renee, have you met Sunny? Oh my gosh, I think you guys should talk, here's why. And then step away. And it's really very valuable. Stay connected after. I can't believe Lori Rifkin is not here. He is the king of this. If you have not seen Lunch with Lori, hashtag Lunch with Lori, he is making something happen where he is really, any networking event he's at, he's perfect on follow-up and things like that. And last but not least, if you have your LinkedIn apps out, feel free to, if we're not connected, please you can scan my LinkedIn code up there. Every Friday on LinkedIn, I post where I'm networking the next week. It's weird, but people want to know where I'm at. And if you need me to be your wingman, like tell me you're going to be there too, and I'll watch for you. I want to make everybody feel welcome and included and invited, and that's just what I want to do. So if you're going to be at something I'm going to be at, like comment and say, I will see you there. It's really helpful. Last but not least, my final tip, be present. You know, networking is an investment, and it's up to you to make the most of it, but I think you're going to get a lot from it. On the tables, you guys are going to find, again, my little puzzle cards. We had a business at one point called Milwaukee Networking Hub. That's not valid, but the cards still have good information. So please feel free to check those out. If you ever need me to run a speed networking event, you know where to find me. Otherwise, you know, when you need some sexy Microsoft Office training, I'm your girl. Otherwise, please connect with me, and I hope that you got some tips to help kick off 2020 with a rockin' start.
All right. She's awesome. Speaking of creating your own tribe, we have to give Jennifer a ton of credit. Raise your hand if you're coming to the small business holiday party we're throwing at 5 o'clock steakhouse. Who's coming there? If you don't know what that means, if you're in a small business, you don't get a holiday party, that's not fair. So we're throwing our own holiday party for all the small businesses. It's the back room of the 5 o'clock steakhouse. It's going to be totally VIP. And sadly, we had a few people reserved and they backed out because we were sold out. So if you do want to go, it's going to be awesome. $80 a head, steak dinner. It's going to be the bomb. Zell? Have Zell sign me up. You sign yourself up. What are you doing? Zell is a speaker tonight, young man. Anyway, we have a couple of seats available, so if you want to come, it's going to be awesome. Appetizer, big old steak dinner, dessert, it's going to be the bomb. And if you've been to the 5 o'clock steakhouse, you know how good it is. Email me. We'd love to have you in. Okay, so doing something like this, having your own event is incredible, and it's a lot of fun. And what if you wanted to have one for yourself? You want to have your own event, you want to build your own tribe like Jennifer was talking about? Let's welcome to the stage the Senior Project Manager for Green Up Solutions, my guy, Andrew Zell. Come on up, Zell. Now, a couple quick things before we start. Zell works at Green Up Solutions, which means this is the first time I've ever seen him not in camouflage, which is amazing, because they normally are dressed like AFW over here. The other thing is, did you see the really amazing Crush 2020 logo that we had, the one that looked like the Crush Soda Pop? My guy, Andrew Zell. So, if you need an artist.
Done a couple things.
Right here.
Yeah.
Very talented guy. Okay, so we're going to talk about throwing an event for your business and engaging your audience. So give us a quick recap of how you learned about throwing events and engaging an audience.
Sure. So you've covered, I work for Green Up Solutions now, Senior Project Manager. But before that, I grew up and lived in a town called Lancaster in Pennsylvania, which is about an hour west of Philadelphia, Amish town. I'm not Amish. And I worked as a director for a record label, so I was finding bands, signing bands, coming up with content calendars for them and their release schedules. And then I also worked as the art and marketing director for an event called the Launch Music Conference and Festival, which hosted about 10,000 people in a weekend. So we had 200 bands performing on 15 stages in 10 venues, in 5 blocks, 3 nights, and then about 75 panelists speaking during the days from all over the United States.
So that's a lot more details than making sure Ian's Pizza shows up on time. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
But it did show up on time. I'm very proud of that. Okay. So before we talk about how to throw an event, let's just talk about why do an event at all? What does it do for your business if you have a solid event like this one tonight?
Sure. So to me, an event is an opportunity for you to create and curate an experience for your customers, your potential customers, something that makes you a little bit more relatable and personable. I think especially those who are in generally unsexy or boring industries. It's not a mitigator, it's more of a motivator for you to have a positive experience people can call back to when they're choosing whether to start working with you, to work with you in the future, or to recommend you to somebody else.
I just heard Mark Schanen yell, but money is sexy!
Yeah.
Don't forget!
I met him, I was upstairs, he said, I do finance. I said, that's awesome, I love money.
You love money?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so how do you know if you should have an event? Why would it be good for you? When do you know what, I might want to have an event for my business?
Sure, so I think that once you have, there's really not what I would say a list of industries here that can and cannot have events. If there's somebody who's starting a funeral home in the audience, you can prove me wrong. But you should have an event if you want to engage with new customers. You know what I mean?
Do you think the funeral home is... okay.
But I'm just, I was thinking what is an industry that you cannot have an event for? And that was one where I was like, oh my God, if somebody here is I definitely can't do that.
Yeah. Different type of lead gen for that one.
Yeah. Oh God. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it was CRM for that. It's just it's just the obituaries.
No, there's another one.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so what kind of event? If you're a starter event, can you think of a baby event that you can launch and get your feet wet?
I think what you should do when you want to come up with an event is make a list. I know it sounds kind of obvious, but it's going to take a lot of bouncing ideas off your colleagues, and you have these safe events, let's call them, right? And that's what you're going to already. That is your business after 5, that's your happy hour, that is your lunch and learn, stuff like that. But also don't be afraid to come up with a really creative new kind of event or something that's kind of interesting. For example, maybe you want to rent a pavilion and you want to do a cookout, or you want to host something at a bowling alley or something that, you can always fall back on these things that people are totally comfortable attending, and that's fine because, you're going to go to them anyway, and you've seen what they look like, and it gives you a little bit more of something to kind of springboard off of. But if you really want to get something exciting going and have people have this memorable experience, break out of the box a little bit.
Yeah, that sounds like fun. Just a show of hands, if we had a brand crafted barbecue and had tall guy do the barbecue, would you guys be down with that? Does that sound good? Does that sound good?
You pointed at me like I was tall guy, and it was kind of...
No, not you. Tall guy in a grill. Dan right back there. Okay, so yeah, we got to make that happen. That would be fun. Okay, so we're going to do an event. We got an idea. How do you promote it? How do you get started?
Yeah, well, I would say first things first, the first thing that happens after you come up with this event is not that you tell everybody when it's happening.
Yeah.
You know, you want to make sure that you give yourself enough lead time to find your venue, to think of people that might want to sponsor, people that could speak at this event if you're going to have speakers. But then when you get to the point where you're going to be announcing, there is a necessary evil. It's called Facebook. Okay, I know a lot of people here probably do most of their business on LinkedIn, and there is an increased functionality with events on LinkedIn. But we're all still on Facebook, and that's where you're going to see probably the most in terms of reaction. If you're having an event where you're going to need like a head count or something like that, I think the go-to here is Eventbrite. That's what we're using for this tonight.
Sure.
So that's something that you want to have in mind if you're going to if you're going to be feeding people, or if you're going to need chairs, something like that. You know, you need to know how many people are coming. So those are the two ways. I mean, everybody, I think everybody here is raised their hand at some point as to being involved with some chamber or another, or maybe multiple chambers. So the people that are in charge of those chambers, maybe start reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'm going to have this event. Is there any way to get it into an email blast? Sure. Can you give me 2 minutes at the end of our networking group or something? Can I be featured this week so I can speak about it? And, you know, like Jennifer had said, like most people are typically generous, right? So you want to take advantage of the fact that people want to help you out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'll share something that, I don't know, maybe you need to hear this if you're thinking about having an event. It was not even a year ago when I thought, hey, I know, let's start a thing called Brand Crafted. And it's going great, and it scared the heck out of me. I don't mean a little bit. It scared me mucho, big time, extra large scare. Because I'm like, oh, what if we put this thing out there and no one wants to play ball? And you together have grown it into a real thing. So if you're thinking about starting an event and you're like, my business can't have an event, wrong, you can. So do it, because it's great. However, sometimes you'll put out an event and tickets will be slow. Like, hey, everyone's supposed to come, nobody's coming. What do you do then?
Sure. So when you announce an event, I actually want to back it up just a little bit here and say, when you announce the event, keep in mind that you don't have to give everybody every little bit of information. Maybe you have that ace up your sleeve. Maybe you have, in music, you have your special guest TBA, right?
Right.
So what you can do is either trickle out a little bit more information to people and say, hey, just so you know, we're also adding catering. There's going to be food here. We're going to have this person speaking. And another thing that I would say is, there's really obvious ones to me, and that's like buy one, get one tickets. That's like a comment and share giveaway, or just, some sort of contest. And they are, kind of easy and obvious, but they do work. People do see, oh, well, now me and my friend can go. I can buy a ticket. We both get to go, or something like that. You can also obviously promote your post on Facebook, and that's where using the CRM that everybody who's gotten up here has mentioned to reach back out to those networks and those people and say, hey, I'm going to have this event. I don't know if you heard about it. I saw you open the email, but I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. But yeah.
All right, time for one last question. So when you're at the event, you've got a crowd around you. What are some tips and tricks as far as making sure that you make the most of the folks being in front of you?
Sure. So one thing that I think events do wrong sometimes, and what I think you can correct with your own event, is a lot of the ways that people drum up engagement at events is by giving something away, right? And a lot of times it's a fishbowl with business cards in it. And that's not necessarily... Hear me out.
Okay.
Hear me out. So all that's really doing is awarding people for showing up, right?
Yes.
But why don't you give away something that's based more on participation and merit and them doing something? So let's say you're a financial advisor and you decide you're going to have an event at a bowling alley, because I mentioned it earlier.
Sure.
And you have teams of 4, and the team that scores the closest to 400, all right, or 401 rather, just because it's relevant.
See what you did there.
They win something. And the thing is, what they should not win is the opportunity to be your client. Okay? That's because that's something that I think people miss as well. Like when they win that, let's get them a movie gift card. Let's go get them, let's buy them the bowling shoes, you know? So make it something, because they're going to come back and think about that. They're not going to, they're not like, great, because I couldn't keep it between the bumpers, now I have to sit down and talk about retiring, you know?
Hey, we learned tonight that's very sexy. We learned that. We've covered this.
Sure.
Okay, that's fantastic. So is there anything else? Actually, that's very sweet. And I can see Mark Schanen pacing out there in the lobby. You're a sexy man. You are a sexy man. Okay, is there anything else about throwing an event, hosting an event for your business that you want to make sure people hear from you?
Yeah, I'd say really quick, your event, 2 really easy things to focus on are either going to be a product or proximity. Okay, so you're either selling a product or your services as a product, or you're providing proximity to people, and that's networking, right? So figure out which one it is, think about where you can do that, and go from there.
Yeah.
Take the other things I said and the jokes.
And jokes. Great jokes.
Thank you.
And because of Zell's expert consulting tonight, we're not going to use the fishbowl. We're going to have a limbo contest for all the prizes.
I love it.
We're over there.
Yeah.
It's going to be great.
When people do that, that's what they're going to remember. They'll be like, dude, that Pat guy, he is funny.
Yeah.
He said we had to do limbo at the last one.
Why not, right?
You know, rather than, I can't read the name on this one.
I know. Thank you so much. Andrew Zell, Green Up Solutions, thank you so much. Very cool. So what's cool about Zell is that he's really Andy's secret weapon. So the guy has done like everything and some really cool stuff. And as an artist, he's top notch and he's really easy to work with. So if you need an artist to do something for you, definitely connect with Zell before you leave tonight, because he's the best. I know that we're running a little bit long, but we've got so many great speakers here, and I'm actually going to share something tonight, which I normally don't do. So I've got some content that I'm going to share as well. But we want to move on now. We're going to talk to Jackson. And the reason why we're talking to Jackson, who owns Elevated Insurance, 1, he's awesome, and 2, you hear people talk all the time about social media. They tell you what to do and how to do it and how important it is, and then you take it home and it's like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to get all this done. Well, Jackson actually gets it done. So we're going to walk through what social media looks like in the real life and how you actually get it done. So let's start with that. So before we get into it, can you talk about your why? Because what's interesting to me is you have Elevated Insurance and you do social media, but you have a bigger calling about what you do for a living. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and as I'm doing that, if everyone can look up Elevated Insurance on their Facebook page, or on Facebook and like it, I have some black market tickets to the new Star Wars movie.
Hey.
And we're raffling them off as an agency for likes on Facebook, and also if I've helped anyone else out in any capacity and they feel comfortable leaving a review on Google, those also get you entries into that drawing. But in general, we all work really hard, and I was at a role for a while where I was working really, really hard and making a lot of good money, but that was it. And there wasn't really a next step, and I kind of thought, if there's a way that I can be putting in all this effort and also having other people benefit, that would be awesome. So I identified a couple gaps within the insurance market where I thought, I know a lot about this, I can probably leverage some of these things, and I can make something good happen. So anytime anyone gets a quote from us, whether they win or lose, we always make a $10 donation to a for-purpose organization. This month we partnered with Next Door, which is an early learning facility in Milwaukee. And next month is Launch, which is a college internship style program for Elmbrook High School kids. So no matter what, whether you end up moving your insurance over to us or you keep it where it is, something good happens in the community and you're probably going to learn quite a bit about insurance.
And using social media to tell your brand is really the heart of what you do. You don't just do insurance stuff, you talk about all of these wonderful causes that you support.
Education, causes. One of the things I'm finding is a lot of people talk about things, but maybe they don't always follow through. So if you do follow us on Facebook, every morning at 7:59 a.m., you will get a positive quote. And that's just one of those things where we always want to be there for people. Hey, if you need something to get fired up, this is a way to remind you that we're out here serving the community in a couple different ways.
So how many platforms do you support and what are you on?
So I use LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. And I use them in a very similar fashion across all three, which isn't necessarily the best way to use each platform, but I am a father of 4, I own a business, I'm married, I have a couple things going on.
Yeah,
so I figure if I can create content and just spread it across the 3 platforms, maybe people will catch it in whatever they happen to have open at the time.
And that's what this is about. If you wanted to have someone do your social media, Keystone Click, for example, they can do it. But if you're doing your own thing, you got to get it done. And you do it differently. You have a busy life and you don't sit at your keyboard all day. Can we show how you get it done? Because this is really cool. This is how Jackson gets it done.
So what we're looking at here is my Buffer screen. So Buffer, Hootsuite, there's a couple different services out there. I pay an annual fee, and what I do is I spend about 4 hours at the last week in the month, and I prep the next month. So I go through, you can see that there's 7:59 every day. There's a motivational quote that goes out, and then we mix it up everywhere from insurance information, funny videos, things about the groups that we're working with and the causes we're supporting, and reviews on Fridays. Just trying to keep things interesting, but also remind people that we sell insurance too.
So where do you get all the content?
So that was the heaviest lifting. After meeting with Pat at the end of last summer, we talked about if you're going to do it, you got to do it, and you got to do it well, or don't do it at all. So there was a solid 6 weeks where I blocked off maybe 3 or 4 hours each week and started creating content. I leveraged Canva and just went on and started putting things together, and I have folders, community, Rotary, quotes, insurance definitions, et cetera, reviews, and just built these things out. So now I have this huge library, and I just sit down, and it takes 4 hours to plug that in. If you're starting from scratch, expect a little bit more time on the front end.
So a few things there to catch up on. Canva, C-A-N-V-A. If you're not using it, it's a free design software online. It's great.
Correct.
And you are scheduling your social media like a recipe. Some from here, some from here. Can you describe those pillars real quick? Those themes?
Yeah. So I actually have, and I got this from Claire Lawler of CL Content Marketing. Claire's here, right? I was in a meeting with her and it just clicked. But it was essentially taking different categories. So I'm saying, like every Friday I have reviews. Every Wednesday, Rob's here. Rob and I do a podcast where we review books. So every Wednesday in the afternoon, like maybe right before you leave from work, you could go on to my LinkedIn page or my Facebook page and pull up a book review that Rob and I have reviewed over the past year. Trying to keep things relatively consistent, so if there is anyone who is actually following this, they're going to say, hey, I know that at this time, this day of the week, I can probably find this on the elevated page.
Mm-hmm. Can we show some of the stuff that you've done?
Yeah, please.
All right, so can you describe this real quick? So those are your platforms that you support, right?
Yep.
And then, okay, so you've got 2 of these posts here. They're tough to read on that small screen, but just describe them real quick.
Yeah, so what we're looking at here is what I'm finding is the posts that get the most engagement are traditionally posts that have community service tied to them, so donation we're making or a project that we're part of, a habitat project. Here you're seeing the ALS walk. That's me and my daughter. We made a $900 donation to ALS research. And then below that you'll see the picture for the Beer Books and Networking group that Rob and I run. We're actually doing a review on Thursday at Exacta, so reach out to us if you guys want to join for that. And that is great because I can pull in a lot of names, and when more names are involved, that gets out into the socials and more people engage with it.
So the reason why I wanted Jackson to talk was that he's putting all his content into pillars. That's a different way to think about social. You're doing it in batches. That's a different way to think about social because you can't keep up with it if you don't.
There's no way.
You just do it in a different way in a busy environment. And how long have you been doing it purposefully like this?
So it's been probably 14 months that I've really been taking that content that I built out and leveraging it. Everything that I've heard is 12 to 18 months before you can expect any sort of result. So I'm still in that phase of maybe I'm getting a lot of feedback, maybe I'm not, but I haven't hit that point to measure really what the ROI is. A big shift has been about 4 months ago. A couple people are getting on me. It's like, hey, this stuff is great, but what are we supposed to do? So part of that was adding a call to action, which is on the bottom just saying, hey, if you aren't sure you're getting the best coverage or your broker doesn't get back to you for 5 or 6 days in a row, click a quote. It takes 10 minutes. Let's see if we can get you something better.
So what's next?
So what's next is continuing to build out videos. You can't really see this on here, but I have this duck mask. I got it for $20 on Amazon.
A duck mask?
Yeah, it's like a mallard head, and it's like,
Okay.
and I don't know what to do with it yet. My latest idea is maybe I have like a bubble pipe and a robe in front of my fireplace, and I read quotes or I read reviews that people have given me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But
May I?
Please, you are the idea guy.
Perhaps it's Mallard Peace Theater? Something like that? Maybe? I don't know.
What the duck, Pat?
Well, touche. Well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted Jackson to speak. But it's also great to see someone that's living out their why and their mission as well as you do. You do insurance. You did insurance for my family. But you're really doing a great job on social, so kudos to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jackson Bubol's Elevated Insurance. Thank you so much. So, Jackson, just like Jennifer, is a hyper connector. So if you want to ask, how did you do that? Can you show me the thing? I know that he'll do that because he's really cracked the code in being a social animal when you're doing it by yourself. Okay, like I mentioned, we're running a little bit behind, and I'm sorry for that, but we do want to reserve some time for the brains in the room here. We're going to welcome up to the stage someone that's going to talk about something sad. Now, you wouldn't think that Lori Hybe is going to talk about something sad, but she's going to. Did you know you were going to talk about something sad? You are. She's going to talk about the saddest page on the internet. And the saddest page on the internet is your blog page. Now, you can tell when someone redesigned their website because it goes like this. Hey, we got a new website, blog entry. Like a week later, I'm blogging. 3 months later, oh yeah, I have a blog. And then it hasn't been updated since, and that was 6 months ago, right? That's what my blog looks like. So, yeah, you're not raising your hand. You know who you are. So, let's welcome another person that's doing just a terrific job online, Lori Hybe. She's the CEO of Keystone Click, a prolific blogger, and a podcaster of the Social Capital Podcast. Lori, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you, Pat, Brand Crafted, Story Hill Firehouse, all the sponsors. Isn't this a great night? I think we should give them a round of applause here. All right, awesome. Fantastic. Lots of really awesome things. Okay, so Deck will do our best to share whatever. But first off, I've got a great story for you. When I was in 5th grade, I was sad, so I have a sad story. Went home and shared with my dad that my teacher wasn't giving me all the cool things to do. There was, I wasn't getting asked to erase the chalkboard. I wasn't getting asked to bring something to the front office. I wasn't getting asked to be the captain of the kickball team. And my dad said to me, Lori, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Okay? Now what does that mean? The person that's going to speak up is going to make something happen. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today. So this story, I'm getting tangled here. So what does that mean? The squeaky wheel gets the grease. This is something that really set and made an impression on me in the last 10 years. It's the person that is telling their story, sharing their experiences, and showcasing their expertise that's ultimately getting the attention of the people they're trying to get the attention of. And there's definitely a right way and a wrong way to do that. So today I'm going to talk about the right way to do it from the blogging perspective. I'm going in assuming all of you know what a blog is. So on the screen, for those that can't see, there's a screenshot of a blog post that lives on our website that was written 5 years ago. And to this day, it is still the #1 most visited page besides the homepage on our website. There is value in having a blog and being consistent with it. What do you write about? This is the question I probably get most often. I'm going to power through a number of tips. First off, going back to the 80-20 rule, I heard it a couple times tonight, 80% or more of your content needs to be evergreen content. What does that mean? That's content such as my example that was relevant 5 years ago. It's relevant today, and it's still going to be relevant in the future. That time-sensitive stuff, that's great. We've got an event, let's talk about it, highlights, but try to add value. That is going to be evergreen content. Where do you get your content from? Where do you get your quality content ideas from? Write these resources down. AnswerThePublic.com, Quora.com. You type in any of your target words or language related to your offering, and you're going to find the questions that people are asking related to the offering that you provide. What do you do with this information? You answer the question on your blog. There's a reason they're going to these platforms and typing these questions in, because they're not finding the answers on the internet. This is a huge opportunity for you to be the expert and showcase your expertise. Another way to look at relevant content, there are 8 types of questions. Who, what, when, where, why, how, which, yes, no, I think I got all 8. Again, look at your main offerings and ask yourself, what are the why questions that people are asking me? What are the how questions that people are asking me? And start making a list of the questions that people are asking you related to your offerings. That can easily turn into blog content that lives on your website. If they're asking you in person, they're likely looking for it online as well. Another strategy that I really like is the hub and spoke strategy. So your hub content is something that has a lot of lists and bullets. For example, 10 ways to get found in the search engines. Your spoke content then is 10 separate blog posts that really go deep into that listicle content. So I will then write 10 separate posts related to those each individual 10 ideas on how to get found in the search engines. Another great tool to check out is buzzsumo.com, buzzsumo.com. You type in one of your keywords or phrases. The example on the screen, I typed in the word podcast. And what this is going to show you is the content that has been the most viral or highly shared and engaged online, articles, blogs, whatever it is, in a set time period that you define. So I typed the word podcasting in, and the most shared content was how to start a podcast with the host of This American Life. So what this tells me is people are interested in starting a podcast because this is the content that's being shared. So if it's being shared, people like it, they want to hear more about it, that gives you some triggers to content that you can create on your own. All right, so 5 best practices for writing your blog. Number 1, make it easy to read. Please don't have big chunks. Our eyes are already looking at screens long enough, and we are scrollers. This is what we do now. Social media has taught us to scroll. So what you need to do is make it easy for someone to scroll, to read lists, see images, nice big headlines that pop out. Make it easy and simple to read. Keep short, concise paragraphs. Your next tip, which is a fantastic tool, if you just Google Headline Analyzer, there's a couple different resources. My favorite is AMIinstitute.com. It's a little bit dated site, but high value content. People decide to click on a link, this works for email as well, or open your email address because of the strength of the title. They're going to connect and make an open decision based on an intellectual or emotional level. So this tool is going to measure if you are able to connect based on the language that you're using in that title on that intellectual or emotional level. Next tip for you, you definitely need words. I used to tell my clients minimum 500 words for a blog post. Throw that away. You need 300 more minimum now. It's 800 words. Quick little story. So it's getting close to the holiday season. I love to bake. I don't know how I fit that in my schedule, but I sometimes do. And I can't just do the same old recipe. I have to try something new. So what do? I go to Google. I type in, fun Christmas cookies, get Christmas cookie ideas. And Will, in my office, is testing out many different cookies recently as he's trying to prepare for a wedding. But anyways, so this shows up, white chocolate cherry cookies, which are fantastic, by the way. Top of Google. but I'm scrolling and scrolling and scrolling to get to the recipe. I mean, we've all experienced this to some extent. There is a reason they're at the top of Google. There's 2,700 words on that page, okay? They know, too, that I want the content at the bottom, so they're going to force me to look at all of the fun stories about making cookies with grandma and whatnot. This one, I'll breeze through it. Just go to moz.com, moz.com. Lots of free tools. It's going to give you lots of great advice on how to optimize your post. Last tip here, be consistent. So build a calendar, have a plan. If you're going to do it weekly, then do it weekly. If you're going to do it monthly, then do it monthly. But you have to be consistent in this. And the only way that you're going to have the opportunity to have blog posts that show up that you wrote 5 years ago is that if you continue to add value and have give Google a reason to come back, but also give your site visitors and your target customers a reason to come back to your website. All right, my last little nugget here, some best practices. Excuse me. Number one, you have to make it easy for your content to be shared. So dark social, I know not a lot of people have heard this phrase before. It's not the dark web, okay? This is just a different way to measure social sharing of your content. We've all experienced it. Someone texted you an article. Maybe you got it in an email or a Facebook Messenger. That content isn't public, shared, measurable information. This is what's happening behind the scenes, and this is where the majority of your content is being shared. So make it easy for someone to just send this message to a friend via Facebook Messenger or text or email, whatever it may be. My next tip here is to leverage your network. Interview people. I mean, who doesn't love seeing their name on somebody else's website? Okay, I'm going to tell the world, hey, this person interviewed me. This happens time and time again. Definitely leveraging this strategy from a podcasting perspective. But this screenshot here, I interviewed a gentleman from Hudson Business Lounge about the chat box that they have on their website. Great conversation that we had, which was an easy way to get minimum 800 words, let me tell you. And I posted it. And he shared it to his network and tagged his business in it. So the reach significantly multiplied as opposed to me just sharing it with my network. So definitely consider interviewing your strategic partners, your target clients, your current clients, lots of opportunity there. My last tip, I know that those that have heard me speak before, this is definitely one of my favorite tips, the reduce, reuse, and recycle philosophy when it comes to sharing your content. First and foremost, recycle or upcycle. You've got 800 words of awesomeness that you just wrote, okay? You can take little snippets and repurpose this, and this is your Facebook posts and your tweets and your Instagrams and YouTube. So one post that you just created can quickly turn into about 20, 30 pieces of social media content. Next, little guy here, is to reuse your content. Remember we talked about evergreen content? It has a long shelf life. There's no rule that says you're only allowed to share that once online, okay? There's a reason you went evergreen here. We use a tool called Sendable. You do have to pay for it. But these tweets that I'm pushing out there, they're in a queue. And the queue recycles over and over again. It's saving me time. I wrote the tweet once, every 3 months, it's back in the Twitter sphere. At the end of the day, if you're reusing and recycling your content, you're reducing your time and financial investment when it comes to making sure your message is getting out there consistently online. To wrap it up here, blogging is definitely going to help you generate leads. It's going to help you build your brand and expertise, and at the end of the day, it's going to add value to you and your customers. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to do something that I normally don't do. And before I get there, I want to stop for a second and just say thank you so much to our speakers we've had so far. Can we give them a big round of applause? They've been great, right? the IQ in the room is really, really high. I'm going to level that back down here for a minute. Because usually, when we do Brand Crafted, I'm the interviewer guy, right? But those of you that have worked with me know that I don't shut up sometimes. So I actually have something to say, which I normally don't do. So tonight, I'm going to share something that I did a lot in my past, and hopefully it'll be helpful for you as you get ready for 2020. So back when I was in radio, did radio for 20 years, marketing director of WTMJ and WKTI here in Milwaukee, worked with the State Fair, worked with the Summerfest, knocked over bottles. I did it all. It was great. But the most important document in a radio station is the promotions calendar. The promotions calendar carries your giveaways, your marketing messages, your concerts, your everything. It's the hub of activity. So we got really good at creating a promotions calendar. You, every business, every single one of you should have a promotions calendar. And when it's done right, you will know every day of the year what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why your audience should care. It's extremely important. So I'm going to give you a crash course on how to create your own promotions calendar for your business tonight. So what is a promotions calendar? It is simply tracking your messages and your customer engagement for the entire year. You're going to know what you're going to talk to them about for the whole year. So here's how you start the promotions calendar. The first thing to do to create your promotions calendar is don't get a calendar. First thing. It's very important. The first thing you need to do to create a promotions calendar, that's what a promotions calendar is you need to define your target audience. Very first thing. Don't worry about what you're doing yet. Just think about, who am I trying to reach? So I decided to use an example for this talk. Let's say that I run a yoga studio. Okay? I look like, no, I don't. But let's just say I did. And my target audience, just for the sake of this speech, is working women in Lake Country. That's my target audience. Okay? So then the next thing you need to do is you need to worry about, okay, there they are. The next thing you need to worry about is, what do you want them to do? The very next thing. So I own a yoga studio. I want to have more people in my yoga studio. So I need to define the action I want them to take. And the action that I want them to take is to attend their demo class. Come in for your very first yoga class ever. That's what I want them to do. Then the next thing you need to think about is, okay, that's what their action is. Sorry, I can't see it here. Is how much would you invest to get a new client? Now, this isn't hard and fast, but if you're selling cars or you're a financial advisor, you might be willing to invest more for a customer than if you're an ice cream shop. So for the sake of this, and I'll give you an example of this, but for the sake of this demonstration, let's say it's $10. Let's just say you'd give away something $10 or $15 to get someone through the door. Now, the example I'm going to use is I could get 3 times the amount of people in this room in person in 24 hours if I wanted to. And this is the example for budget. And the reason is I could go down to the gas station down the street and make it 49 cents a gallon, and I would have a line of cars down the street within an hour. Because I'm giving away such a perceived massive value, people will respond. So you have to understand what you're giving away to draw a crowd. Does that make sense? Have you seen those gas stunts before? They work every time. So you need to understand how valuable a customer is, and you make sure that you're giving out enough to get them through the door, but not enough that you're going to go broke, right? Okay. So here's the next part. You have to think about a couple of things when you build your promotions calendar. Here's the first most important thing. You need to think about a list of shared cultural touch points, things we are all involved in. Let me tell you, that is harder than ever. I'm talking resolutions, Valentine's Day, long winters, new movies, warm weather, family vacations, Milwaukee festivals, 4th of July, Packers, first snow, weather, Halloween, Election Day, Thanksgiving, Black Friday, holiday parties. You get what I'm going for here? Big, fat, hairy things we all care about. I will give you a tip. If it's on Netflix, we don't all care about it. You may think we do, but we don't. If it's on the TV, nobody's watching it. Even the big network shows don't run for office on Game of Thrones, for example. And I'll tell you why. Game of Thrones is great, right? Everyone watched Game of Thrones. No. In the grand scheme of things, the lowest rated show on television in 1997 had more viewers than Game of Thrones did, because our culture is so deeply fragmented that even the most popular thing, do you see where I'm going with this? Even the most popular thing is now niched down to a tiny audience. So you want to think about shared cultural touch points, big things, Thanksgiving, Christmas, those sorts of things. The next thing you want to talk about is you want to talk about shared personal activities. Think about your target audience, working women in Lake Country. What are some of the things that they may enjoy or may respond to? And I made a few here, thinking of my lovely wife, Abby. Books, wine, self-care, family time, exercise, shopping, vacations, learning, those sorts of things. Things they might be interested in. So you got 2 lists going on. The next thing you need to do is make a list of your existing events that matter. Your annual sale at the quilt store. It's a big thing for us. We have to do it every year. What is the thing that already is working for you, you have to do again? Make a list of those. And there's probably only a few of those. I'm talking the gangbusters, big deals that work for you. Make a list of those. And then the last thing, and Jackson is an example of this, what are the brand building activities that you want to do? If every time they come into the yoga studio, a dog gets a bowl of food, then you want to do stuff about dogs, right? You want to think about what you're trying to accomplish to help round out your brand. And like I said about Jackson, he does a great job of that when it comes to telling his insurance company story by promoting his community service. So you got 4 things. Remember, we don't have a calendar yet. These are just the 4 things. Shared cultural touch points, shared personal activities of your target audience, important existing events in the business, and brand building activities, right? So, now you get the calendar out. And now you start putting in tent poles. You can picture a circus tent, right? See the tent poles? The tent poles are the things that you know you're going to do every year no matter what. So if you have a giant quilt store sale at the beginning of December, put it on there. Thanksgiving, put it on there. The things that you know you want to engage in, they're going to be on the calendar, put them on the calendar. The next thing is, back out 2 weeks from anything important. You really have to have intentional focus on this. So if you have a big event, clear out at least 2 weeks ahead of it so you can talk only about that thing for those 2 weeks. If you have too many messages, say a lot of things to a lot of people, nobody's going to hear anything. Be intentional and be focused. I'll use an example. This event was announced at the end of September. And as much as, we're buds and stuff, did I say anything else in the last 2 months? No, I've been babbling about this thing nonstop. So it's really important to promote it with focus. Now, you've got your tent poles, the things you have to do. Now you get to fill in the gaps with the shared cultural touch points, the personal interest things, the things you want to play with. And remember, we're trying to attract people through the door. So I have a few examples just for fun. So let's say it's Valentine's Day. Oh, I forgot this part. So it's Valentine's Day, and you're a yoga studio, giving away chocolate. Okay, everybody does that. Change the camera angle on it. How can you look at Valentine's Day in a different way as it relates to your target audience and your business? So for Valentine's Day, love your body and try yoga. That makes a lot of sense, right? Come in, do some yoga, get some chocolate. But we can do better than that. Let's move on to Summerfest. Shared cultural touch point. If you have a business in town and you're not doing something with Summerfest and State Fair in your promotional calendar, you're doing it wrong. Unless your audience is, what did Zell say, the graveyard? Unless you're the graveyard, funeral home, you should be doing something with Summerfest and State Fair because it's really important. It's really some of the most shared cultural touch points that we have. But for Summerfest, you're a yoga studio, do the Summerfest salutation. So try a yoga class in June and get a free Summerfest ticket. Everyone knows what Summerfest is. Everyone knows that's interested in yoga. They know about a salutation. It's a thing. Run for office on it. It's just a fun way to weave your business into something everybody already knows about. Here's the other thing. As a matter of fact, I would say it's the most important thing. And I don't care who you're targeting. You should be doing something on this next topic. Okay, so get a pen. This is extremely important. I don't care who it is. If you're a tall guy in a grill or you're a quilt store, you should be doing something on this. Packers. I'm sorry. I'm a Bears fan and you should do stuff about Packers. So Packers, how can a yoga studio do it? Ohm Pack Ohm, right? Wear your Packers t-shirt on game day and get a free class. What the heck? It doesn't matter. Because here's the thing. There are people that will take part on it, fine. But the rest of your audience will hear about it. And they'll say, oh yeah, that's I get it. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that place. It's brand building. It's part of who you are. So you have to think about who your audience is, what they care about, and then try and fit yourself into that. Last example is a Black Friday sale. The Downward Dog Doorbuster. Why not? So you'll get 6 months of classes for the price of 4 if you buy them on Black Friday. Again, everyone knows about Black Friday. How do you get someone interested in a yoga studio to care about it? You marry those two things. So once you have your touch points, then you have some tent poles, and you have everything all kind of put together, you're going to end up with a really nicely spaced out calendar, which folks like Claire from CO Content Marketing will love because they'll know exactly what they're supposed to be talking about when they're doing your social media. Your employees will love because they'll know, hey, all we need to get people to do is come to Ohm Pack Ohm. That's awesome. I can wear my Packer shirt for 2 weeks. People get it. And you're not saying the same thing over and over again. You're changing the camera angle on your value proposition to your customers. Everybody needs a promotions calendar. It's essential. Here's what it looks like when it's done. So I was the marketing director, and I built behind the scenes. I'll tell you that story a different day. But when 94.5 went to WKTI, KTI Country, we created a calendar that looks like that. And it had almost every week of the year a different theme. You can't see it because it's small, but every box is something to do with the country audience and what they were into. And we knew exactly what we were going to do. And here's the other reason why it was awesome. If you're a big enough business and you have salespeople, our salespeople who happen to be over there, who I worked with back at WKTI, Eric and Mr. Soli, who are terrific sellers now at Entercom Media, highly recommend, they knew what they could go out and sell. So we could monetize these things because they had it 6 months in advance. So they run into someone at a networking event and they say, oh, you like Kenny Chesney? Hey, do you know we're doing a bus to his concert? Yeah, why don't you sponsor it? Sale, because you were planned out in advance. It's crucial, crucial stuff. So that's how we do it. Now, 2 quick things on promotional messaging, and I know that we're long, but this is just some things that I think are important. Promotional messaging is important not just to new customers, it's important to your current customers too. Make them feel like they're a part of the party. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a secret here. Right now is like one of the first times I've ever sat in front of the Brand Crafted group and said something that I think. It's always about everybody else. And if you're running a business correctly and talking to them, it's always about everybody else. If you're putting on your website all about, we do this and we do that, okay, great. What do you do for me? And if anyone has had a strategy talk with me, they know my letters, what's in it for me? That's all anybody cares about. The other thing I'll say is promote like your life depends on it. Odds are you're not promoting hard enough. So if you had to have that Packers class full, what would you do? Like, you had to do it or Big Mike was coming to take your business. Not that you would do that, Big Mike. Oh, where were you? He left. I love Big Mike. Oh, there he is, right back there. So if Big Mike needed to get paid and you needed to fill that yoga class, what would you do? That's what you should be doing. We had a fun conversation with Allison Orlovsky, who got to speak at Woman Up and crushed it over the weekend. We talked about how could she fill her speaker's room, and the idea was get a male model with your shirt on it, because all the women walking by would be like, oh, who is that, right? And if it was that or else, that might be an idea that you can use. So think of something that will cut through and do it. The other thing is, you're probably not promoting enough. Double the amount that you're promoting, just do it, because you're not doing it enough, right? It's incredibly fragmented out there. If you're relying, and I would hope Lori would agree with this because she's the social expert in the room, same with Claire. If you're relying on Facebook and Instagram to send your messaging, but you're not putting money behind it, you're really wasting your time. You're just wasting your time. What's the clearance rate now on Facebook, Claire, Lori? We're like 10% or less? 5%? So you put something out, let's say you have 1,000 followers. Hey guys, my thing! 50 people are going to see it until you put money behind it. So if you're going to do Facebook with intention, like Jackson's crushing his social, if you're going to crush it like Jackson, have a budget to put behind it or nobody's going to see it. And isn't that sad? That's so depressing. But it's a fact. And the last thing that I'm going to say, and you've heard me say this, pick your thing and run for office on it. Think of the politician. You meet a politician, what do they say? Read my lips, no new taxes, right? Think about what your thing is and be known for that thing. Big Mike, bank on Big Mike, hell yeah. Every time you see Big Mike, he says the exact same thing. And you know what I think of when I think of bankers? Bank on Big Mike, because that's all he says. So have the courage to focus. If you go into 2020 targeting more than one audience, good luck with that. Okay, so you all deserve a cookie for being here this long, and I'm so sorry we ran this long, but this is great. So I just want to thank you all for coming to Crush 2020, and I hope to see you next year at Crush 2021. It really was a pleasure. Thank you. So,
it's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.